Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
It is Friday, and all of our guests today are sponsored by Passant Motors. Passant is looking to help save you money in 2024. Choose no car payments, no gas payments, or no insurance payments. I like all three of those. Until the summer. Get all the info at Passant Motors, BASANT Motors.com. This is from Ramon, just before we get to Thomas. Delaney's OK Tire and Langley inbox. Can you guys make a compilation of Donnie talking about how Pettersson isn't the guy they should build around?
Ooh.
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did at one point.
No, what I said.
Many months ago.
Much like Thomas, I was in favor of a rebuild, whether they kept Pettersson or not. And I've admitted that on the show a million times. I've also said that as a longtime Vancouverite, I hope I'm wrong. From The Athletic, he joins us now from beautiful Buffalo, New York, Thomas Drance. Thomas, thanks for doing this, sir. You're on the road. We appreciate this. How are you?
Hey, I'm eating enough L's of late, Donnie, that you don't need to lump me in with that. Team Pettersson, come on.
Yeah, misery loves company. Have you been to the Anchor Inn yet there in Buffalo, where buffalo wings were invented?
Gentlemen, I've had a mess of a travel day. Ended up not making my 5 a.m. flight after filing at 12:30 to Charlotte that I was then going to take up to Buffalo. So I rented a car.
Oh.
I rented a car and I drove to Buffalo in time for this hit and for practice. I'll probably end up at Anchor or at Gabriel's and have some wings later. But yeah, not yet. I've only been in Buffalo for about 20 minutes.
See, that's character. That's toughness. He
That's
rented
a good
car.
guy. You're not soft like someone we know in this studio.
Just to be with us. Okay, 4-3 in overtime, Canucks over the Penguins. Whose idea was it? Was it indeed Rick Tockett's to put the lotto line back together? Who gets credit for that?
You know, I think there have been some internal conversations, including with players, about stacking the top of the lineup, seeing what that might look like. Based in part too off of what some of those players saw from how the Colorado Avalanche do it. I think Rick was pretty skeptical. Honestly, I think Tocchet was pretty skeptical at first, based off of what he's said in media scrums following like the game in New Jersey and the game in New York. And then finally the game on Long Island, we got the, I'd be worried for my safety joke. And then last night he's like, hey, this looks pretty good. And he's right. I mean, obviously it looks really good. From my perspective, gentlemen, I think about this season in sort of waves, right? Like there was that first month of the year, the best start in franchise history, where you had the power play absolutely cooking, right? Canucks like 1, 2, 3 in league scoring, and Demko playing absolutely out of his mind. And then you had this stretch where the team's defense kind of carried it, and they were really relying on some of those like rebound goals. I mean, we've been talking about it a lot, right? The reband goals, the deflections to manufacture offense. And then we got this stretch where the top six kind of stopped generating, and the Garland line with Bluger and Dakota Joshua kind of carried the team offensively. And, I sort of look at this last week, and this to me looks materially different. The sorts of chances they're creating off the rush, the 360 windmill, tomahawk jams that this Canucks top line is unleashing on the Eastern Conference over the course of the past week. I mean, this is the most dynamic this team's looked offensively. And you can understand why Tocchet would be reluctant to use that group of five, together, given what it does in terms of thinning out the rest of the lineup. I mean, you look at it on paper, right? And you worry, can they get enough offense from the second line? Do they have enough elsewhere in the lineup if they stack the top line the way they have of late and then self-match that line with the Hughes-Hronek duo? But, Bluger, Suter, Amon, the Canucks' other centerman, like the most impressive thing about this week of games for the Canucks for me is they've all outshot Canucks opponents 5-on-5. Every center in this lineup right now is, in the black by shot differential since the club stacked up the lotto line. So it's not as if the club right now is like giving back some of the goals that they're manufacturing with this 5-man group. their depth is holding, which also gives Tocchet the flexibility to let this experiment run, to entertain the people, to give us what we want, which is more of this, more of those types of goals, and more, intense games like the one we watched last night in Pittsburgh.
Well, Thomas, you know this city well enough to know that there's a lot of rumors and speculation. The trade deadline is not too far away. So, what's your wish list? Canucks go big? Do they tinker a little bit, or do they, play safe and keep those prospects? Don't tinker with the prospect pool. What do you want to see happen at the deadline?
Yeah, I mean, I increasingly think that there's a lot of reason to at least consider going big. For me, it's about the target, right? Like, it's not about the concept of going big and should you be willing to give up this or should you be willing to give up that. It's about what shakes loose and what opportunities present themselves. I mean, we never mentioned the name Filip Hronek until the day the Canucks acquired him, right? But, as much as we, myself included, carved the club for the price paid there, the hockey fit's clearly been worth it 2 times over, right? Like, I think it's, it's more for me about what opportunities shake loose. In my head, the template thing that I think would be an amazing ad for this team would be if you could find one of those big second line centermen, right? Ideally a guy who can play maybe the net front on the power play, which is, an area that Tocchet clearly views as a need. Maybe, can help on the PK, right? And add some size to the lineup, and then obviously sort of give yourself the flexibility to drop Suter down. That to me would be a piece that would address a ton of these teams' needs all in one fell swoop. But, good luck. I mean, everyone wants a big second line centerman in the that's the most marketable commodity in the NHL. And, if the perfect centerman doesn't pan out, I think this club's positioned in a way where, not throwing all caution to the wind, but certainly recognizing that the way things are going, how every single top player for this team is playing at the absolute apex of their game, that the team is healthy, that you've got, all these players who are filling in either at the top of the lineup like Hronek and Pettersson, or maybe a little further down, whether it's Cole or Myers or Dakota Joshua, right? Sam Lafferty, all of whom are expiring and all of whom are likely to be more expensive following this season. I think there's opportunity that's knocking here, and that does justify, I think, some aggression, which is good, because if we know anything about Jim Rutherford, it's to expect some aggression. Top 6 forward, ideally a center, would sort of be at the top of my wish list, as it were. And then, I think a position agnostic, like add the best guy who shakes loose. To me, those would be sort of the priorities in order.
All right, our poll question is about Elias Pettersson. He's still not signed. The Canucks obviously would like to do this, Thomas. Yesterday, he's taken his time. Is that a concern for you?
I don't really have a very good sense of what's driving it, right? I do know this. Like, I do think that when Pettersson signed the bridge, right, I do think he struggled thereafter for the first little bit. I do think the weight of the new contract was something that weighed on him a bit. So it could be as simple as this season's too important for me to risk, feeling pressure like that again in season. Like it could be something as innocent as that. It could be something more. I don't know. So I'm really reluctant to speculate on it. The thing about what we're covering and talking about here is, we keep talking about Pettersson's contract, and yet it doesn't feel like the situation's changed really since he gave the interview on a boat, right? I mean, we're still in stasis. It still seems like Pettersson's, wants to be patient. Maybe he'll stick to his word and wait until the end of the season. I don't think any of us would be surprised about that, given, how that young gentleman is wired. So, we'll see where it goes, but it does feel like kind of nothing's happened. And you can certainly understand, especially given the early returns from the Canucks short-term retooling project, why the club would be feeling antsy to get it done. But, obviously you need 2 parties to come to the table, and doesn't seem like it's gotten there yet.
How'd Jake Gensel look last night? Rick wants to know that.
Yeah, Gensel, give us an update.
I mean, he's a really good player. Like, just flat out. You'd have liked to see him get a shot off on a 3-on-1 in overtime, I suppose. But that those things happen. And credit to Filip Hronek, played it expertly. I mean, this is a very fast, very assertive, very impactful two-way driver who can also score and is a proven difference maker in the playoffs. He's probably the best player who could be available ahead of the trade deadline on March 8th. And, you can certainly understand why the Canucks and a variety of other teams would be highly interested, keenly interested in netting him. No question in my mind, that is not a passenger on Sidney Crosby's line. He's a guy who helps get it done for Pittsburgh's top line.
All right, Thomas, can't thank you enough. Going out of your way. Driving from Pittsburgh to Buffalo to make this hit. We can't thank you enough.
What kind of car was it?
All in a day's work. Oh, it was a compact SUV, Rick.
Okay, there you go. All-wheel drive.
I'm not exactly sure what it was, but compact SUV, Google Play, listened to some NFL podcasts on my way up. It was great. Great. I'm all prepared for the wild card weekend now. Should be fun.
We've got a podcast too, Thomas. May want to try that next time.
Yeah.
No, I save them on my PVR and watch them all when I get home.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. That's the right answer.
Yeah, to see your face, that's why you do it.
Thanks, Thomas. Appreciate it, my friend.
I binge all the Friday episodes. Thanks, boys.
All right.
Adios.